April 14th, 2023. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Mini on the Thinkorswim platform, 2000 tick chart. Go down to the descriptions below. You can just see the timestamps of where I took my trades as well as where I thought I saw setups. This is what the market looked like today. There are two pieces of economic data that came out that might have moved the market. The first one was around 5:30 Pacific Standard. It's right around here. Looks like it didn't really quite move the market all that much. And then the second one was right around 7 a.m. Pacific Standard, right about here. It did get a little choppy. This is how I drew up the charts today. I only took two trades. They were both winners, which is nice. And I didn't see too many setups actually. The pre-market, it just kind of chopped around. This is the pre-market high and low that I drew a trading range in. And then prices spiked up. Prices rallied, then sold off, kind of went to a channel, and then kind of climbed and made two swings up. The difficulty I found was, here's the EMA, the 21 EMA. Now, there are a bunch of second entries, but there weren't very many high probability setups that I could find. And there, as you can see, even though it's kind of doing a very bearish trend, prices are just kind of jumping above and below the EMA, which kind of threw me for a loop. There were several areas of like consolidation, these smaller trading ranges, but overall, I didn't see, with my skill level, I didn't see too many setups that were safe to take. So let's go ahead and just get into it. This is the pre-market. I don't trade the pre-market. This is the high and the low. It looks like it was a pretty tight range because this is on 41.62 to about 41.77. So it's only about 15 points, which is enough to get trades in, but this is just the pre-market. Then I saw prices move up right in the open. I try to fit this trend channel, and then I saw another one, kind of like a spike and overshoot, but it didn't really come back in. It did kind of bounce off of here. And unfortunately, there's no setup here that I could see, so I didn't take anything. Prices continue moving up. It kind of falls into this other channel here, and I didn't draw this bigger one until later, so I just kind of move them out of the way. Kind of moves up. Eventually, I did kind of drop it in here. I said maybe there's one touch here, two touch here, and then a potential third touch here. This is where I actually took my first trade. So it's kind of like the first bounce and touch of the EMA after it broke up. And I kind of just chopped around and stayed here. And then the first touch, I was anticipating a bounce. So this is a pretty reasonably good signal bar. It just touched EMA, and depending on how you drew this, it kind of touched almost the bottom of this channel. So I considered a potential second entry. So when this formed, I thought I liked this for sure confirmation touch, and it touched also the bottom of this trend channel. So I took an entry here. But I was also leery that it's kind of getting really close to the news announcement, and the possible move might be from down here around 41.85 to about 41, maybe 88. So I wasn't going to be too ambitious. I decided to just kind of go for a smaller scalp of just 1 point, because the ATR at that point was only about 1 point, about a little bit less than 2. So I decided not to get too ambitious. I was good enough for a scalp. And then it kind of came flashing back down. So I'm glad I stayed out of it. This is, I started using these big rectangles to do my measured moves as opposed to those arrows, just because the arrows sometimes get a little bit confusing, not confusing, but it clutters up my charts a little bit. So this measured move isn't measured yet because I don't know that it exists yet. And so then I kind of keep moving along. Prices kind of chop around. I did see a new high here, a first entry long, technically a second entry long here, but this isn't a very good signal bar, so I left it alone. And you can also see this is one big leg down, first entry long, maybe a second entry long here, but this is also not a very good signal bar. So I also left that alone. Then prices just kind of swung down. Now at the time, I also saw this is a new low here, first entry short right here, and a second entry short. Now I missed out on this trade, but I was thinking, if this actually formed a little bit nice, cleaner, maybe toward the bottom, I was thinking it might actually be a potential trade. But unfortunately, the setup just wasn't there. And it's unfortunate because it's a really nice move down. I don't get a lower high on my chart till maybe all the way down here, because you see it never goes up past the previous bar. So I actually don't get a higher low. Then prices just kind of chopped around. So this is where I drew my first measured move, this one leg down. I'm just thinking this one leg down. I didn't drop it here yet. But then I also saw a new low, first entry short, second entry short, third entry short. I don't really like the setup. Saw a new high here, first entry long, comes all the way down to a second entry long, but this felt like at this point it might have been a counter trend trade, but it also was bouncing off the bottom of this pre-market lows. So I guess I wasn't confident that this was actually going to bounce back up to the EMA, but I believe you could have taken a trade here if it was a triple test. But the triple test kind of happened pretty far away because it's like one, you had to wait over 2 hours for the second one, maybe a third one if you group these two together. Then from 5 a.m. in the morning all the way up to 7 is another 2 hours. So I just didn't feel that was, for me, worthwhile to take. I just wanted something a little cleaner, a little more obvious. Prices continue moving down. And as prices are coming down, then I actually copied this and dropped it here, put it right here, thinking that might be a measured move all the way down. But that doesn't come into play at the moment. It was just, and also I don't necessarily take a trade. It's just if I'm in a trade, I might use it as a target to know that I should get out before it makes this completed measured move. So it's just some guidelines for myself. Now here I did make a triple test right here. First push up, second push up. But of course, you really only have two pushes up. To say you're going to have this counted is a little bit iffy. Prices continue moving down. And then here it does touch confirmed a triple test here because you wouldn't really count this as one of your touches. You count this one for sure, this one for sure, this one for sure. I saw this, but in real time, I wasn't sure because I was thinking this is potentially the top of the trading range. EMA is kind of flashing sideways and it is making lower lows. So this is a possible trade, but I just wasn't mentally prepared to take it. And that's unfortunate because it turned out to be pretty good because you can see this is a new low. First entry short, one tick below, second entry short. And at the time, you only see this. I also saw two clean legs up, and it did do a triple test. So all those, and this is, even though this is a green bar, it's bearish. It's a bearish because it closed on the low. And so I skipped this trade, but in hindsight, I think it was worthwhile to take because there's enough room from here down to the EMA. Not only that, there's enough room, if it blasts through the EMA, because here the EMA isn't being respected at all. It's being pushed up through and pushed down through. So, definitely there's enough room to the EMA if I was concerned about that. It is getting close to the low of the pre-market, which is this blue line. But as you can see here, it's not doing much to support prices either. So all that added to, after the fact, I thought I should have taken that trade, especially when I saw this big red candle. And it's getting to the EMA, but I wasn't even that worried about the EMA at that point. But it certainly was too late to chase this. And then you could have seen if I kept my stop up here, I wouldn't have gotten hit and that would have been all right. So fortunately, I'll live and learn and hopefully next time I'll see it clear. At this point, I actually drew this bottom support first because I liked all the confirmations and I wasn't really sure if this top one was true because it could have actually been a slightly lower. Let's see here. Could have actually been kind of like right here, maybe some overshoots, but I did drop it here and here. Actually, it's a little off, maybe a little bit tighter. That's okay. I did have it there and just as a guideline to see if it'll confirm a third time because the bottom was fitting pretty nicely. Then I did see the U high here, first entry long, all the way down to here, second entry long, but I didn't really like this because, it just wasn't a good setup. The signal bar, this is a terrible signal bar. The trigger bar looks pretty good, but I just didn't feel confident in it. Prices continue moving down. I do see this setup here, which is a new low of the day. First entry short, second entry short, but this is a pretty bad signal bar. It didn't even break below this guy, so this is currently your signal bar. It closed pretty bullish, and even though it confirmed and touched the third time, I wasn't 100% confident in it to just take it. So I just need a better signal bar, and I wanted to see, okay, if this is a first entry short, second entry short, and if, actually goes down, maybe there'll be a lower high that follows up, that forms below the EMA to make me feel confident that prices are going to continue moving down. Because even though there's a bearish downtrend, overall prices are been kind of slowly grinding down. So it's not giving me enough confidence it's very strong because every time it pushes down, there's a pretty strong move back up. And it is losing strength, but this move back up is actually higher than this one. So here, when I only see this, it's hard to know if it's actually going to come back up and test this. So that made me hesitant to take that short. Turns out it would have worked pretty well. You would have probably gotten a quick scalp out of it. And then prices would have moved down. Probably could have gotten out right there, and maybe depending on where your runner was, if you kept it, might have gotten hit, or for me, I know if mine would have gotten hit. And then it did confirm a third time for sure. Now, if I wasn't sure here, it's confirmed a third or fourth time, depending on how you drew your trend channel. Prices continue moving down, consolidates. And so you can see there's like plenty of second entries all over the place, but they don't set up quite right. And the EMA is throwing me for a loop because even though it's not quite a trading range, it almost looks like a trading range where it's kind of sloping down. So I don't know how much validity to give to the EMA at this point because it's kind of chopping through it all the time. So it's hard. It kind of was confusing for me. Then prices continue moving down. It chops and consolidates, but I don't see any good entries. The only one that I saw that might have been decent was like here, first entry long, the second entry long. And it's kind of like I had the trading range a little higher at that point. So when it kind of cut through, thought this might have been worth a trade, but excuse me, this one right here. But it's kind of in the middle of this trading range now. It's hitting the midline. So that kind of made me pause and wait. Prices continue moving down. EMA is holding prices a little bit better now. At this point, I'm looking, and it kind of keeps moving down. So EMA is being respected by not being tested right now or being pushed through. It has a overshoot right here, so I'm thinking maybe there's a chance it'll move back up to the other side now. Prices continue moving up. It makes the first leg. I count this as the first leg. It's kind of like first entry short. And here it makes like a second entry short. It breaks out of this side. So I didn't mark it, but I was also unsure if this is considered the new low. First entry short, second entry short, resets the count here. But you see here is like a first entry short right there. Then a second entry short. Then if you reset the count here again, there's only really a first entry short. But I also took a step back and looked at it kind of big picture, thinking, okay, maybe this is the new low, and I grouped this all together as a first leg up, first entry short, then group all this up as a second entry short. And it broke out this side, and I'm thinking it might come back in. This is a pretty decent signal bar, but I decided, I'm not really 100% sure, so I was just going to wait because I wasn't really thinking reversal yet to move out, and I was thinking it's going to come back in, but I just needed another confirmation of a lower high. So I'll go ahead and just mark this for myself as a second entry short, but I didn't take it, and I wasn't really sure if it was a good enough entry. Prices continue down. I'm looking for that lower high, and I finally see it right here. Say, okay, there's a lower high. I want to see it break below. It doesn't. It creates a double bottom. It's also inside. So that made me pause and think, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. Is it going to come back up and test this? So at that point, I just kind of sat on my hands. Turns out it would have worked well because when this one closed, I thought, because I didn't want to take it on this candle. I wanted to see if it actually breaks down and where it closed. And when it finally closed here, I thought, okay, maybe I'll put my entry up here. And it never comes back for me though. So there's a lower high here, but unfortunately, it looks like a good setup after the fact. But being conservative, I wasn't 100% sure because I like that this one flashed up green, confirms the second entry short, but at the time you only see this. And when this one didn't close below, if it only closed below, then I probably would have entered that trade because right here, what it's telling you is prices opened up here and it never came back and tested the high, which is really great. Flashed down, it couldn't break below this signal bar, and then it closed slightly upwards. So in other words, at the last moment, there were some buyers that came in and pushed it right up to here. So knowing that, I was just hesitant. I waited. So I waited for this candle. This candle formed, it opens up here, which is great. And during that time, it flashes down, does a whole bunch of stuff. So it opens here and eventually closes down here. That gave me the confidence that, okay, prices are coming back down, coming back into this range. But I don't want to take it one tick below here because it made a double bottom, potentially a triple test right here. So that made me say, okay, well, I'll put my entry up here, one tick below. So one tick below, it actually doesn't come up. It didn't fill me. I was too slow because this one just closed and I thought, oh, okay, well, let's see what happens. while this is forming, I say, okay, I'll put my entry here. Maybe it'll come back for me. It doesn't come back. And so this is a missed trade. And it turns out to be, you know, a reasonably good trade in my opinion. So I'll just go ahead and asterisk it. Unfortunately, I missed it. Prices continue moving down. It bounces off the bottom, creates a double bottom. I do see a new high here, this localized high, first entry long, second entry long, but I didn't like the signal bar. So I just sat on my hands. Prices continue moving up. It's kind of like just looking back at this time of day, I'm looking back, I don't see very many setups. So I had to be patient and remind myself in these times in the past, I would get anxious and take a stupid trade or no reason trade. So I try to stay as disciplined as I can today just to say, well, let's not end the week really badly. Just if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Or if there's no trades, there's no trades. It breaks out of this trading range, this trading channel. Prices continue moving up. I don't see a good entry. There's no second entries. There's all first entries. It breaks out. There's kind of a slow, shallow overshoot. So I kind of left it alone. I was like, okay, well, I'm not really sure what's happening here. Actually, I think there might have been a trade here. Looking back at my notes. Here it is. So here is excuse me. I see a new high here. First entry long, and a second entry long. Now, I like the second entry long here, or it's preparation for second entry long, because I saw two clean legs down, one leg down and the second leg down. Now, on top of that, this is an inside bar to this big one. So this is the signal bar. I placed my order one tick above. The reason I like this trade is because it broke out of the EMA. It doesn't look like it's going to come back down into this at this point, even though it's a bearish trend down. It's been a pretty weak, slow bearish trend. So I'm taking a risk for sure that this next candle is going to move back up because, yes, there's an overshoot here, and typically an overshoot means it might break out to the other side. And I'm thinking this overshoot took about, you know, like it took like 5 candles to create this overshoot, as opposed to these type of overshoots that kind of impulsive, comes out and comes back in. So I'm thinking there might be a little bit of strength push back up, enough for a quick scalp. So I was only going for 1 point, and fortunately it worked. So I got my 1 point right there, or 6 ticks, you know, enough for 1 point. And then my runner kind of got stopped out break even. And then it flashes back down. Now, if I kept my stop not here, but originally where it was here, I would be taking a risk that giving back profits. So I always moved it back to my break even. That's where I got stopped out. And it turns out I would have, you know, gotten like 2 points out of that. Of course, you don't know at the time. And then it kind of chops sideways. So it eventually breaks out of this channel. But let's just get through that. But it's just kind of chopping sideways now. So I don't know if it really is going to move down or go back up. So I just sit on my hands and wait. And I do see a failed second entry long here. First entry, new high here, first entry long, second entry long. This second entry long was made right here. And it looks like it's going to fail because the EMA is holding. And I thought it was a pretty decent signal bar. It closed below the EMA. The one downside is that it's coming into the potential low of this trading range. That I first drew this top one, and then I just kind of dragged it down to here, saying there might be a trading range here. And even more optimistically, maybe it's actually down here. But in any case, there's not enough room to scalp out, so I just left that trade alone. And of course, it just kind of chops down and flashes down. I don't know if there was a news event or something that happened here, but it flashed down, and then it kind of went back up, and it's getting close to the end of the day. I don't see another setup except for maybe right here, but it's already at, you know, 15 minutes before the close, the first entry long. By the time you want to take the trade to be right here, it's only 10 minutes left, and this wasn't a very good signal bar. So I just left it alone. And then it kind of runs into the close. So I was able to scratch out 2 trades, and I didn't see too many setups. So it was kind of it was a high volume day. There was a lot of volume in these candles, like a lot of price action happening. Excuse me, there was a lot of price action happening, but there wasn't very many setups, because today certainly was a lot of volume, but unfortunately it didn't quite go my way. As well as here's the EMA, and for a while it was just kind of going between, it was just riding between all this price action. So it's hard to know if it's going to ride it back down or ride it back up. So it's a little bit, even though it was a lot of volume, it wasn't super clean for me today. So hopefully that was helpful.